guys, welcome back to the Cozy Corner. Today I'm going to go through what I read in March and give you my opinions and how I read them and if I recommend them. The neighbours are currently having works done, so I apologise if you hear banging, sawing, all that malarkey. So the first book I read was Elizabeth is Missing. I really enjoyed this book. I gave this one a 4.5 star. It was really quick and easy to read. It's about a lady called Maud who is really forgetful, a bit like dementia, Alzheimer's, and she's convinced that her friend Elizabeth is missing, but nobody really believes her. And the further you go in the story, you find out more about Elizabeth and Maud and the events that have led to Maud believing that Elizabeth is missing. It was really cute. There were parts in it that were quite emotional. But yeah, I do recommend this one. I did really enjoy this one. Next, I read Shakespeare's Sonnets. I have conflicted feelings about this book. I gave this a 3 star. There are some sonnets in here that I really like, but they are far and few in between, unfortunately. I went into this with such high hopes, and maybe I wasn't in the right mind space to read this, but it was not as good as I was hoping it was going to be. So I will keep this and maybe reread at a later date. But yeah, 3 star. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as a captivation as I thought it was going to be. Next, I read Little by Edward Carey, and this is the historical fiction based on the life of Madame Tussauds. Anybody who doesn't know who Madame Tussauds is, she is, I guess you'd call her like an artist. She learned how to sculpt out of wax. So she's got, I guess you'd call them like exhibitions. I know there's one in London, New York. I think there's one in Tokyo. And they are waxworks of famous people throughout history, or well-known people throughout history. So I was really interested in reading this. I went into this with such high expectations, and I really struggled to read it. It wasn't a bad story. I think it was the writing style. I gave it 3.5 stars. I probably won't read it again, but I'm really glad that I did read it. I'm so confused by it because it was such a good story, and yet at the same time I just couldn't get myself to read it. It put me in a bit of a reading slump, to be honest. But it tells her story from when she's a very young child all the way through to the end of her life, and it does end up telling you about the exhibition centres that she opened. So as I said, it was really cool, but the writing style was not for me and it made it really difficult to read. So I would recommend it, but also with the warning of it's probably not going to be the quickest book to read. Next, I read The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. I love this. This is such a controversial book. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was, as somebody who is really interested in words and their origins and their meanings, I found this book really interesting. It is the story, a historical fiction of the creation of the Oxford Dictionary, essentially. And I thought it was really genius, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. Saying that, there are reviews on it that the majority of people don't actually like it, which I can understand. Some of the language is a little bit crude and yeah, a bit vulgar, but the actual concept and idea behind the story is genius. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read more by Pip Williams. But that was another one that I read. After that, I read, what did I read? Judy Blume, Here's to You, Rachel Robinson. I really enjoyed this. I gave this a 3.5 star. Now hear me out, because I just said that I really enjoyed it, but I only rated it 3.5 star. Because, and I have this issue with every Judy Blume book I read, she leaves me wanting more. Like, the story is so good, but as a reader I feel there could also be so much more. So this story follows Rachel Robinson and her dysfunctional family and finding out her family history and making decisions about college. Her brother has some sort of issue going on, and they really play on that, how the brother has this issue, but you never find out what this issue is, and it's such a big part of the central story. I just felt a little bit let down that I never knew what the issue was. And there's an incident that occurs while they're on this field trip, and it changes the dynamic of the family, but you never find out what the incident actually was. What's the meaning behind the incident? How come this incident changed the dynamic of the family? And I feel that with every Judy Blume book I read, I just want more, which I guess is a compliment, because her books are so easy to read and so captivating. Yeah, I just always feel disappointed and slightly unfulfilled, because I want to know more about these characters. I want to know more about the backstory. But that's just a me issue. And I said 3.5 stars. Absolutely loved it. Would recommend, but you are not going to get all the answers that you want from this story, which is fine. Then I read The Library of Heartbeats by Laura Messina, and she also wrote The Telephone Box at the Edge of the World. I think that's what it's called. And I liked that. I really did enjoy that. So I went into The Library of Heartbeats with the same expectations, and unfortunately it did fall a little bit short. I still rated it a 3 star. I still enjoyed it, but I think it just didn't captivate me as much as The Telephone Box at the Edge of the World. I felt the stakes with the characters weren't as high, so I wasn't as emotionally invested in them. But if you want an easy, feel-good, heartwarming book, I do recommend it. Please excuse the kids screaming if you can hear that. The next book I read was This Is Where It Ends. This book has been on my TBR for the longest time, literally since it's been released, which was over 10 years ago. This is the 10th anniversary edition, and I finally got around to reading it. Oh my goodness. It was anxiety inducing, but I couldn't stop reading, and the ending of it may or may not have made me cry. Just putting that out there. And I don't cry. I'm not somebody who really cries, especially when reading books. I give this 4.5 star. I would recommend, but please read trigger warnings beforehand. It's a journey. It really is a journey, but I really enjoyed this. And look at the sprayed edges. I don't know if that's upside down. Nope, that's not upside down. Like, it's such a pretty edition. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And then I entered another reading slump. I always find that once I read a book that is so good, I enter a reading slump after that, because I'm like, I'm never going to read anything as good as that. And then enter Breaking News by Jeremy Thompson. So I've read about halfway, and I'm enjoying it when I'm reading it, but I don't seem to want to pick it up once I put it down. So I think I might flick through the contents and see if there's any chapters that I want to read. So Jeremy Thompson is a Sky News journalist and newsreader, and this story tells from like his early days at the BBC all the way up to get into Sky News. So it covers him covering wars, uprisings, rebellions. It is a really interesting read, but also not interested enough for me to want to pick it up to continue reading. So I'll rate what I've read so far. So I've read half of it and I would give it a 3-star. So it's not terrible, but it's not in a top read. So as I said, I'm just going to flick through the content, see if there's any other chapters that I want to read that sound like they're going to interest me. And then I think I will unhaul this, unfortunately. I think because it covers so much war, because Jeremy has been covering war zones for decades and decades, and because there's so much war going on in the world at the moment, I don't want to read about it as well as having to listen to it and reading through it through the news, if that makes sense. It's just a bit too much. So I will flick through, see if there's any other chapters I want to read that maybe not so war involved, and then I will unhaul. Philippa Gregory Boleyn Traitor. I was so excited to pick this in my TBR, and then I just ran out of time. March finished and I still had not started the Boleyn Traitor. So I'm going to put this back on my TBR and hopefully we'll get to pick it out in the next couple of months. I managed to get a Waterstones special edition of this, and without the dust jacket, it is absolutely gorgeous. And I am really excited to read it. I just ran out of time. So this will go back on the TBR. I'm just going to pop that there for now. And I think, oh no, I did one more audiobook. And that was also Philippa Gregory, and that was The Virgin's Lover. The Virgin's Lover is the story of Queen Elizabeth I, who was the second daughter of Henry VIII. And it's just historical fiction about her reign and her supposed lover, although historically not confirmed, because she was known as the Virgin Queen because she never married, and therefore it was assumed that she never had a partner. It was okay. There were some chapters that were made a bit smutty for my liking, but I gave it a 3-star. Definitely not my favourite Philippa Gregory, but also glad I read it. And that was my roundup for March. One DNF. I guess it's going to count as a DNF because I'm not going to finish it. One to go back on the TBR because I didn't have time. It wasn't a bad reading month quantity wise. It wasn't a great reading month quality wise. I feel previous month I've had higher star ratings on books that I've read, so I'm hoping that April will be slightly better. Let me know what you guys have read in the month of March and what your favourite reads are, and if there's anything you guys recommend. I'll see you again soon. Bye!